All right, I think it is time to get started. So we have a small group joining us this evening, so I'm not going to go too into depth here or anything. We all know each other. So I would like to thank everybody for joining us this evening. My name is Bethany Pearson. I am the program coordinator for the Everett Rail Marshfield Public Library. And I am not going to get down too much into this. I'm just going to welcome Vicki Schnitzler here for this evening. And thank you so much, Vicki, for joining us and being available for a fantastic and interesting program. I'll let you take it away.
Well, thank you, Bethany. Welcome from central Wisconsin. And I think most of the people who are watching us right now are somewhat in the area, but hopefully at some point in time, there'll be people viewing this that maybe aren't right around here. What I'm going to be sharing with you tonight is some information on one of our businesses downtown. And this is not an ordinary business. This is something that's a little bit different. It has tie-ins to Wood County. It was ran by Wood County for a portion of the time. A co-op gets involved, so it's got a very unique back history. And I just wanted to be able to share some of that with you tonight. So we're going to get started. Back in August of 1974, a lady by the name of Jeanette Jacobson and another lady, Cindy Voigt, who was working with the Wood County Division of Aging, sponsored a booth at the Central Wisconsin State Fair so that senior citizens in Wood County, not just Marshfield, but entire Wood County, would be able to bring some of their items in and sell them at the fair. They had a booth way down at the end. It was just a single wide booth. And it was surprising what happened at that little booth. As we go through, we find out that because of that little appearance at the Central Wisconsin State Fair, sales were really good. And it was decided that maybe we should do something for the Christmas season, make ourselves a little bit more known, make us visible. So maybe we could find an empty storefront or an empty room someplace that we would be able to have the public come in and continue to purchase items. As I'm going through my presentation tonight, you're going to see actual newspaper clippings. I use a subscription service called newspapers.com. And for those of you that are looking for articles or newspaper clippings or things in any of the Marshfield newspapers, the Marshfield News Herald is one of the papers that they carry, as well as several other Marshfield papers. And I'll give a plug to the library right now. The library also does have microfilm copies of all of the newspapers. So if you want to sit there and scroll through them individually, you can do that as well. But the advantage of being able to use a subscription like newspapers.com is that you can pinpoint a specific newspaper. You can specifically look for a specific date. You can look for a business. You could look for an address. You can look for a person's name. So it is searchable, and it's pretty amazing some of the things that you can find. Well, going back to our successful fair business, we were able to come up with a shop at 328 South Central Avenue. It was owned by the Central State Bank, and they were gracious enough to let us use it free of charge, and they even paid our utilities. There was some catches that were going to be coming on down the line, and I'll talk to you about those shortly. Here you can see a view of the west side of South 300 block in Marshfield on Central Avenue. Don't run out and go looking for this because none of those buildings are there any longer. It's kind of sad. So some of these pictures that you're going to be seeing of this 300 block are very treasured because it's not there anymore. But in order to have the business, we decided, or I should say the ladies at that time, the crafters at that time, decided that, you know, they had to have some guidelines. So one of the things was, in order to be a part of the craft shop, you had to be at least 60 years old in order to consign items there. Some of the other things, you had to be from the county, not just Marshfield, but it could be Wisconsin Rapids or anywhere from Wood County. Here you can see a clipping that the craft shop is going to be opening on November 25th, 1974. So again, the fair was in August, and it didn't take long for those seniors here in Marshfield to get busy, set up a store, and have things ready and have a grand opening by November 25th. You'll also notice here another clipping, which I thought was really interesting, was that the Wood County Department of Aging was providing free bus services for shopping. So anybody in Wood County that was a senior citizen, all they had to do was sign up for the bus that day. The bus would pick them up, bring them to Marshfield for Christmas shopping. They could have lunch at any of the senior spots. And they'd also stop at the craft shop as well as some other places for groceries and things like that. But they'd also stop at the craft shop so that people would be able to purchase items for their gift giving that year. Well, as you can see here, the little bit that the shop was open in November and December, they pulled in approximately $10,000, which was phenomenal at that point in time, back in 1974. And so they decided that the craft shop would continue at least for another year. They had a lot of different obstacles coming up along the way, but at least they knew that they would be able to run for the 1975 year. And again, when the fair came around in August of 1975, the craft shop was there again, bigger and better than ever. And I believe it was at this one that not only did they have the original booth, but they also had a second booth right beside it. So it was like a double booth. Again, it was very successful. The problem was that there were changes that were on the way, and they weren't always good changes. The first one that they had to deal with was November 1st. Wood County imposed a 10% service charge on all the items that were sold at the shop. So in other words, if an individual had an item that they sold for $10, $1 of that would go back to the county. It was kind of interesting. It was meant to be put into a specific account for the craft shop that they could use later on for, you know, whatever they needed to buy for fixing in the shop or whatever. But that service charge ended up being used a lot of different places. And you can see that the county also, the Board of Supervisors set up an expense account where this money would go into the receipts and expenditures, you know, whenever we had things that we had to pay for. Okay, so let's see what else might have happened at that point in time. Now remember, up to this point, anybody in Wood County could be a part of the senior craft shop here in Marshfield. Well, all of a sudden, that fall in 1975, Wisconsin Rapids seniors decided that they wanted their own shop down in Wisconsin Rapids. And so what they ended up doing, they worked together with the individuals at the Department of Aging, and indeed they were able to come up with their own shop down in Wisconsin Rapids. What happened when that took place was it pulled crafters away from the shop here in Marshfield, and needless to say, we didn't have as many crafters that were bringing things in here. This is the store. It's the old A&P store in Wisconsin Rapids, and that's where they moved into originally. They've been in several different spots down there as well. But this is the store that they moved into. It was a fairly nice sized store. And again, as with the crafters here in Marshfield, not only are the seniors there trying to get it ready, they're painting, they're putting in dividers, they're doing all kinds of things. That way they could save money on, you know, the cost of getting ready. I know the pictures from this particular newspaper, and this is a Wisconsin Rapids newspaper, and the pictures just didn't come through very well. The lady that's over on the left-hand side is actually Cindy Voigt, who was the Wood County coordinator for the Department on Division on Aging at that point in time. And she was the lady who did a lot of work between the Marshfield shop and the Wisconsin Rapids shop. She also was in charge of doing a lot of the book work and making sure that deposits and things like that were taken care of and made. Well, another thing happened. Remember back when the seniors first moved in to the store on 328 South Central, they were getting it rent-free and the utilities paid from the Central State Bank. The reason that was happening is the Central State Bank at that time was slowly buying up all the properties on that side of the street so that they could tear all of the properties down and build a brand new bank and a parking lot, which they eventually did. We were told in 1976 that we had until, I believe it was August 1st, in order to come up with money. So we had to find a new storefront, first of all, and then we would have to have money so that we would be able to pay for our rents. Well, that savings account that we had started through the county was used primarily for that. But that wasn't all. Let's see here. Okay, here's a slide. Actually, I'm sorry, it was August 1st of 77 when we had to be out. This is an article in the Marshfield newspaper back in February of 1977. Here the bank is buying up 3 more properties in that half block. And you can see that, you know, where that end of that white building kind of in the middle. And so we were only a couple stores away from the bank. There was a space actually between the bank and that first building that had the bay window up in the upper level. But we were only a couple stores away from the bank, and the gorgeous bank as it was, they actually tore that bank down later after they had their new one built. And that's part of their parking lot right now. Here's a nice close-up of the 328 storefront as it was when it was our craft shop. Again, this picture was taken the summer of 1977. If you look very closely along those storefronts, notice first of all, there's not very many cars downtown anymore because that side of the street what did you see? Empty buildings. There's signs in some of the buildings, we have moved here, or some of the businesses that were still running, they were having moving sales, or just going out of business sales and things like that. But that is where we were, the craft shop, when we first moved in. As I said, we needed to find some money so that we would be able to continue to pay our rent in 1977, 78, and down the road. We worked with the Wood County Board of Supervisors. They gave us a small stipend. They also entered into the contract for rental on a new space. Our new space was going to be located at 450 South Central. So they actually went ahead and did the agreement, got the paperwork ready for the rental of that property, and gave us $2,000 of financial backing that we could use throughout the months if we came up short for rent and things like that. Now the real work started. Again, remember, this is August 1st. We had to be out completely, moved down about a block farther south to our new store. So we were working on that. But remember, August is fair time. And as far as I could tell, the senior crafters never missed a fair from 1974 up until about 2000. They were always there in the senior craft area, selling their items. So again, not only were we moving a store, getting a store ready, but we were also getting stuff out at the fairgrounds and taking care of a week out there as well. Some of our senior crafters obviously didn't sit still very long. Here they are getting things ready in our new store. Some of the pictures I really enjoy because it does show some of our volunteers that were crafters. And unfortunately, some of these ladies and gentlemen are no longer with us. So it's kind of nice to be able to go back and see their faces again. On the left-hand side, you see Gertrude Sharick. She was from Marshfield, and she's showing one of the Christmas ornaments. She was so proud of it. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see a dollhouse that one of our crafters put together. And then you'll also see Mrs. Carol Johnson, again, who was another one of our volunteers down at the craft shop. And as you can see, we were ready to open up our new store by November 24th. Again, from the newspaper in 1978. Not only were we trying to get money from the county to help subsidize our rent and our utilities, which we had to pay now, but we were able to apply for grants. And in 1978, we actually did receive a donation from the auxiliary for the International Fraternal Order of Eagles. And so in this picture, we have some of the people from the Eagles Association. There's Ella Esser, who was the committee chairperson from the Golden Eagle Committee, Cindy Voigt from Wood County Department of Aging, Mrs. Merle Good. She was state president of the auxiliary. Alice Abraham, president for the Marshfield Auxiliary 624. And then also Mrs. Mildred Stalsman, who was a past president. So these are some of the ladies that came down to the shop and enjoyed some time there. But along with that, they also brought us a nice donation so that we could continue working. Now, in July of 1979, the lease was renewed for 2 more years. And the Wood County supervisors, again, provided us with some extra funding of $2,000 if we needed it. At this point in time, our rent was $400 a month plus utilities. So, if we weren't making money in the shop, that $2,000 didn't go very long. Again, fair times coming up. Just some of the activities and how involved the senior craft shop was for years and years and years at the Central Wisconsin State Fair. And again, you'll notice that Wood County provided bus transportation up to the fair from all over the county. So that was kind of nice. One of the interesting things that I found when I was researching, and I didn't get a picture of any of them in here for right now, but I found out that the senior citizens of Wood County put out series of small cookbooks. In 1975, again, you can see that there's cookies and bars, there's soup, stews, and casseroles. The last one that I've been able to find was 1979, favorite desserts. And there was always articles in the newspaper, and here's one of them from 1978, when they were ready to start getting new recipes for their next section. And I thought it was just kind of interesting. I found two of them. My husband helped in our own stash of things that we have here. I found two of them. But if anybody has any of these, please contact me and let me know, because I would love to borrow them temporarily and get them back to you. If you happen to have, I'm trying to think which ones we have right now. I know we have the favorite desserts, and I think it's the cookies and bars or the yeast breads. I'm not sure, but I know I have the 1979 one. But if anybody has any of the earlier ones, please let me know. I'd love to see those. In 1989, the Wood County Board of Supervisors approved the creation of a half-time craft shop coordinator. Now, the problem with this was we had a savings account through the county. In other words, that 10% that they would take from each dollar or from each item that was sold in the shop, that would go into this savings account. Well, the next thing we find out is that they're going to start having a half-time craft shop coordinator, and her salary is coming out of that savings account, which we're going to be paying rent for, or using to pay rent. So yeah, a lot of interesting things happening through time. I love the pictures that I found in the newspaper. The senior craft didn't do an awful lot of advertising per se, but they were a lot of times running articles or had a picture or two in there about items that they might have up with just a caption. A lot of times there wasn't a story with it. It was just one of these little short blurpy things, come on down to the craft shop. These are some of the new items we've got in. One of the things that we found over time was that Wisconsin Rapids and Marshfield were not the only craft shops that were being run by counties or that were being run by their seniors. There was one in Medford, one over in Neillsville, another one up in Wausau, and I think there were probably some other ones as well. But again, in this particular article, they do talk about those three in addition to the one in Wisconsin Rapids and ours. This I found interesting. We're trying to keep up with the times and keep up with the other merchants in Marshfield. And so one of the things that I did find was that the craft shop even had a bridal registry. And, we don't have necessarily a lot of bridal things. We do have a few things, but we have a lot of household items, dish towels and different types of things that you might want to use to help furnish your house. And so it was a good place to go, and brides did sign up. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any of the old records of that, so I'm not sure how successful it was or how many couples actually used it or who those couples were. But I did find that it was interesting that they did have one. Not only did the crafters have their items in the shop, but they would go out and they would do different displays in different places. Now, this is an article that was in 1993 during the summer, and it's again talking about the area seniors, that they have this week-long display in the lobby of the M&I Central Bank. And the thing that I found interesting was that where the arrow is pointing to, the craft shop has steadily grown to 450 crafters. That's a lot more crafters than what we have right now. And this is even after the Wisconsin Rapids crafters pulled back out and went back down to Wisconsin Rapids. So in 1993, we still had a lot of individuals that were using the store to keep themselves busy, to share their talents and just make themselves feel useful and viable and prosperous. As I said, were at the fair for almost we were at the fair every year from 1974 up through 2000. And again, an article from 1993 talking about things at the fair. And going back into the small archives that we had down at the shop, I was able to find some pictures of some of the different displays or areas. Some of them are from 1999, some of them are from 2003. So again, I know we were there in 2003 and in 1999. But again, just a large variety of different things. You'll see Packer, they had fall, they had Christmas, you name it, it was there. Well, as I said, there were always changes coming, and a lot of them sometimes weren't always good. At this point in time, they decided in 1994 to raise the fees from the 10% that they were taking for each dollar, or for the items sold, and they raised it to 25%. A lot of our crafters were not happy about that. At times it had gone from 10% up to 15% in 1989, and then it was 18% in 1991, but then in 1994 they raised it up to 25%. The picture here is Hilda Patch. She was a volunteer at the craft shop, and just to show you that we had, and we still do have, individuals come from all over, not just from Marshfield, not just from Wood County, not just from Wisconsin, but we have individuals that come from out of state to come and shop at the craft shop. It's just that unique. Again, more financial problems, and this time it meant to the point that we might have to shut down. And of course, everybody was having financial problems, but they were looking at a way to be able to keep our operation going, to be able to have enough money to do that. And again, the county was kind of getting tired, I think, of doing all of the extra financial backing if they didn't have to. So we you know, they did some brainstorming. They came up with some solutions. They thought, like Marathon County Senior Shop at that point in time was actually taken over by the Lutheran Social Services. Another option would be closing either the Marshfield or Wisconsin Rapids shop. At this time, there were both shops in Wood County, and they both were running from that same savings account. And so they thought, well, maybe if they didn't have the expenses of both of them, they might be able to make one of them work. Well, that created problems because which one were they going to get rid of? One of the other things they talked about was bringing more individuals in. And at this point in time, they actually thought about lowering it to, instead of 60, they were looking at lowering the age for the craftsmen who would bring items in down to 55. So lots of things to think about. In 1994, this is inside of the shop down at 450 South Central. And we have Margaret Frankowick and Dawn Zegon in the picture that's over on the right-hand side. Again, as I said, many of these individuals are no longer with us, and it's kind of nice to be able to see their faces and see some of the things that they went through in order to have our craft shop there yet today. 1994 was an anniversary year for us. It was the 20th anniversary since the 1974 fair, and that first year when we opened up the shop at 328. And so we tried to make the best of it. It was our anniversary year, even though the gloom and doom and everything was hanging over our heads of not having money for the next year. But they kept going, they kept active, and through all the different things that they did, they still found out that they might still be closed. There was some in-store fighting going on among the craftsmen. They weren't happy about how the store was being managed by the person that they were paying. They didn't like seeing that 25% being going out the door that they wouldn't get when they sold items. It just generated a lot of problems, a lot of discontent among the crafters. And again, trying to come up with financial solutions in order to keep it going, it wasn't easy. And you'll notice there too that the store actually was only generating about a third of their operating expenses, and that really was not enough to pay rent and the management bookkeeping services that they had to pay for in order to keep the shop going. And again, the seniors tried to stay as optimistic as possible. They had been there for 20 years and they were going to celebrate. And for some reason, they also decided that they were going to find a way to make it through this. Here is Evelyn Harris, again, another one of the shop's volunteers, and she's checking out a Santa for the 1994 Christmas open house that the shop used to have. And I'm going to put a quick plug in right now is that the Senior Craft Shop is also having a open house before Christmas again this year. It is going to be November 20th and 21st. It's a Friday and a Saturday. I think those are the right dates, but it's only about a week and a half away. So if you feel brave and you want to come out and see what we have to offer, there are a lot of really unique Christmas gift ideas. There's quilts, there's baby sweaters, there's kitchen towels and scrubbies, there's woodworking, birdhouses, a lot of decorating ideas. So again, if you're not doing anything, that Friday or Saturday in November, come in and stop by the Senior Craft Shop this year for our open house. Okay. In 1995, the announcement came that the store was going to be closing at the end of the year or sooner, if the county didn't help with the monetary problems. Well, the county decided that they would fork over a little bit more money, keep us going at least until November. November and December were always our good months because that was people coming in for Christmas items, Christmas presents, things like that. So if they covered us until November, we could make it hopefully through those last 2 months with what we were making. There were in-kind services, including federal aid, that covered a portion of it, and we had savings that would hopefully cover the rest of it. Now, although Marshfield residents wanted the county to get rid of the craft shop coordinator, remember, all of a sudden we were paying this half-time coordinator out of our savings. We had, they had thought about if they got rid of this lady, that we would have more money for our rent. Well, somebody else would have to take over those bookkeeping things from the operation. What was going to happen? We didn't know. Well, the seniors got busy and they actually went out and started collecting signatures to keep the craft shops open. And they presented those signatures to the Wood County Board in February. And the board decided to give the craft shops $6,000 in contingency funds to keep things going for hopefully another year. So now we're into 1995. We hope we can make it through the end. There was a panel, and you can see the other article on your screen. A panel was put together trying to come up with viable solutions. And again, we've talked about some of those. We talked about lowering the age for people who brought items in. We had talked about getting rid of the coordinator if somebody would take over the bookkeeping detail. We thought, or they thought, I should say, that if we closed the store downtown and moved into a different facility that maybe was cheaper, that was talked about. We had talked about moving into the senior center, but there really wasn't enough room in the senior center for the shop. It would have to be downsized tremendously. But again, all of these different ideas and thoughts and, how can we make things work? Well, as you notice, Marshfield seniors have a lot of experience and they usually don't give up. With a little help, they came up with another option. And that is the option that has carried us through from 1995 until present day. They decided that there would be a possibility that if they sold stock shares in the business, that would give us some running income. We would still have to charge a percentage from each of the sales. But it was actually a feasible idea, and we had several different people check it out, and it actually was a workable idea. So in April, they actually started selling shares, and the shares were $20 a piece. So how it worked was that each individual that was a part of the craft shop or one of the people who brought in items would need to purchase this $20 share. And again, you could purchase them right at the shop. And that actually did bring in a little bit of money to help pay for the rent and to keep things going, because now we were paying for everything on our own. One of the things in that middle article, it says craft shops being organized. They had to come up with a name, which they did. It was the Senior Crafters Co-op. And everything seemed to be going pretty good. But remember, we still had 2 separate stores. We had the Marshfield store. This was the one that we were trying to deal with right now. And just a lot of things were kind of up in the air yet at this point in time. Okay, they gathered the signatures. I think I'm going the wrong way here. I'm going to get back the right way. There we go. And so with gathering these signatures and with starting the co-op, these were a couple of the guidelines that we needed to come up with. We did lower the age down to 55 years. One of the changes that we made was that there was no resident requirement, so that any senior from Wood County or any of the surrounding counties could now be a participant. They would have to come in. They'd have to buy the share of stock for $20. At that point in time, they were paying 25%, I believe, as their percentage. And I noticed I've got on there, currently they're now paying 35%, plus they have to buy their share of stock. And now currently there's an annual fee that's been added. So every year you also throw in an extra 20 bucks into the kitty. It sounds like a lot, but it gave the seniors a chance to continue the shop and to be able to operate it on their own. And one of the major things that they were seeing through time was that through all of this stress of probably closing the shop, the seniors are getting disappointed and not feeling well just because they didn't have that hope to keep things going. This was something that gave them a purpose, gave them a function. They were able to use their talents, as I had mentioned before, and it also gave them a little bit of income. Here in June 1st, actually the senior crafters did go out on their own, and there is a typo in the article. It's supposed to be 450 South Central instead of 405. Always find mistakes in the newspaper, so don't always see go by everything that you see. But again, just a little bit of the information that was in one of the articles, and there you have a really nice picture of the craft shop with a sign that says under new management. And the new management was still the seniors that had been working there all along, except now the county was not a part of it any longer. Okay, here we have a couple more. We have Joe Tritz, who was on our board of directors at one point in time, doing some of his woodworking and sign painting and things like that. We also had a couple other ladies that came in the store to do some shopping before Christmas one year, Peggy Gillette and her daughter Jennifer, both from Birchwood. And again, as I said, we have people from all over Wisconsin and other states that come in. And because we do have the Marshfield Clinic, a lot of people need to spend a little bit of time here and there between appointments. And so a lot of them have decided that the craft shop's kind of a cool place to come down. And we usually have people, repeat customers, coming back several times a year just to kind of load up and fill their supply boxes. Well, In 1995, we are getting ready to do our grand opening. And here's a picture of Margaret Frankwick, who was our first president after we became a co-op. And then also in the other photo on the page, we again, a lady, Susan, from Trinidad, Colorado, and Rosemary Cademan of Marshfield. And they were looking at different baby items to buy. Again, we have a wide variety of items down at the shop. In December, this was an article picture taken just before Christmas. Still plenty of Christmas items, Christmas ornaments to put on your Christmas tree. In 1996, the crafters held their first annual meeting and they elected new officers. Here I've got the officers and the board that was working when the co-op first started, and then the new officers for the 96-97 year are listed there. A lot of familiar names. Some of these individuals have been at the craft shop until just recently. Terry Adler, who was one of our original crafters, just passed away this last year, and we miss him a lot. But it's interesting to see some of the other ones that are also crafters that are with us or no longer with us. Well, one of the things that inevitably was going to happen was that when we were doing well, Wisconsin Rapids Craft Shop always had to try and keep up with us. And so it didn't take long. Within a few months, in 1996, the Wisconsin Rapids seniors decided that they also had to do a co-op so that they could keep their shop running as well. Obviously, they weren't getting the funding from the county anymore either, and so they had to come up with a way to make things work. And it's been interesting over time since this time that their craft shop had closed, it had reopened, it's closed, it's reopened, simply based on where they've been able to locate in, what properties they were in. Again, some of the cool pictures of our volunteers down at the craft shop. Here we have Teresa Fisher and Fern By. I remember working with Fern up at Alpine Holidays up at Columbus. She was one of the vendors that was in a room with us. And over on the right-hand side, the center picture is a gentleman from Prince Corporation, not affiliated with the craft shop. He just happened to be one of the vendors at the fair that got his picture taken. But again, you can see a couple happy fellows sitting over on the right-hand side of some of the items that were taken to the fair in the senior booth. Hilda Dukow of Marshfield. She's sitting there working on a pair of baby booties, and of course they would end up in the craft shop. Over on the right-hand side, we have Beverly Meredith, again, another crafter for the shop. She's holding a Afghan that is embroidered, and then she also had some doilies that she was showing in this particular article. Now, sometimes these articles had things that, more information that went with them. A lot of times they were just the pictures with a caption. And sometimes they, you don't need a lot of words to go along with a picture. Isn't the saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words? So I think it's really cool to see the items being shown in the newspaper and the people who are feeling so vibrant and useful and happy with the items that they're making. Here we're in the year 2000, and here's Barb Backus. Barb is one of our current vendors. She serves on our board down at the craft shop right now. And she had joined, I believe, if I remember the story correctly, her mother was a part of the craft shop. And so when Barb was able to start bringing items in, she did this as well. In the year 2000, we were celebrating our 5th anniversary. Now, we've been celebrating a lot of different anniversaries. We were up to our 20th, and now we're back up to our 5th. Well, remember, the 20th was from the time that we started the store, and now the 5th one is from when we've been out on our own. So we've got a couple different types of anniversaries that we had been celebrating. Again, just a really nice article that had run explaining the need to keep seniors involved in the shops and why they're useful and beneficial. And here's a couple ladies, Ruth Binder, again, another one of the volunteers that had been down at the shop talking with Marjorie Gussman. And Marjorie is from Schofield. And again, they were just chit-chatting about some of the different items, and maybe Marjorie was thinking about maybe bringing things down to the shop, which she could do because we opened it up to not just Wood County residents. So it's hard saying exactly what they were talking about, but again, sharing information, and notice the smile on Ruth's face, just that useful, happy feeling of being there and being needed. Here we have another picture of Don Zegon. A problem occurred, and for some reason, there we go, I missed it. Back in 2001, this was right after Christmas, and you can see the lower photo. This is the corner of West 5th Street and the south end of the 300 block of South Central. The store that was at the end caught on fire, and there was major damage to that store. But because the senior craft shop is the store directly to the north of that, it was lucky that we didn't have more damage than what we did. We did end up having smoke damage, so we had to have professional services come in and take care of smoke damage and do cleaning. Here we have Dawn. She's back in the shop. The cleaners have kind of finished up a lot of their stuff, and so she's trying to get some of the Christmas things that were left put away. But again, all the items had to be cleaned. There was a new ceiling that needed to be put into the store at that point in time. Just a lot of things. It never ended. There was always something going on that kept the crafters on their toes down there. Here's Dorothy Goodwin. She is also one of our current crafters, and she also serves on our board right now. And Dorothy is very talented and does a lot of beautiful doll clothes and things. This is one of the outfits that she had put on a doll and was showing it. Again, just notice the smiles and how happy and useful these people are feeling. Again, all these different things that are going on. Up in 2013, our building was sold. Luckily, we were able to stay in our location. We didn't have to move. The new owners said, no, we're going to keep you right where you're at. You're good tenants. You've been there a long time. So we were able to stay at our craft shop. Now, the crafters have remained busy over the years. Not only have they managed the shop at 450 South Central, and again, the one before that at 328 South Central, but they have had an active role in different events around the community. including the Parkinson's Conference sponsored by the Marshfield Area Respite Care Center. We were a part, and Lori, you're going to remember this, we were a part of the 59th Wisconsin Square and Round Dance Convention that was out at Senior High in 2018. We've been at the Astor's craft event for their residents. We've been a part of the Seasonal Treasures Craft Show for the last 3 years, I believe it is, and we share a lot of crafters back and forth with Seasonal Treasures. And we've been out at Festival Foods, making brats and hot dogs and hamburgers for all of you hungry people during the summer. So we don't just sit in the shop, we're out doing lots of other things and keeping busy as well. That is going to kind of bring me to a close of the history of what's been happening down at the Senior Craft Shop. Because I am a local historian in the city of Marshfield, I just wanted to share a little bit. Here we have our first location back in the late 1800s. I couldn't find a specific date on this picture, but based on horses and no vehicles, it had to be the late 1800s. Historically, other stores or businesses that have been in this same building, we have the Country Miss, we have Michelle's Bridal and Style Shop, Malson's Style Shop. It was Olson's Clad Easy shop for a while. And then Kohl's had a style shop there that they were in for over 60 years. So this is kind of starting from Country Miss and working backwards. And Kohl's were actually probably in that building in the late 1800s, or some of the generations of the Kohl family. So again, just a little bit of history. And then I'll jump up to the 450 South Central location where we're at right now. Before we moved in, it was the sweet shop. It was also Sandy's War Surplus and shoe repair. Somehow that also tied into Rude's Surplus. It was before that, it was the Tip Top Cafe, the Marshfield Novelty Company. Deckert's had a grocery and owned the building. They also had a company that came in called Magic Wonder Company. And they, from what we could tell, probably were doing a rental of part of the building, and they had their grocery in part of the building. Couldn't find a lot of information from way back, probably like the late 1800s. Not that it's not out there, we just didn't find it yet. So if anybody has any information on some of these early buildings, please remember that the addresses downtown did change over time. Back in the early 1940s, street addresses all changed. So what is 450 now was not 450 back then. The same thing with 328. And with that, I want to thank you all for listening tonight and being a part. Hopefully you've learned something about one of our very unique businesses in the downtown area. Again, I want to remind you of our open house that's coming up in November. We have a Facebook page. Check us out, Marshfield Senior Craft Shop. And with that, I'm going to say thank you. Good night. Thank you, Bethany, and thank you all for watching.
Vicki, we did have a couple of questions.
Yes.
We'll take care of those before I let you go.
Okay.
I had one question that was addressing the very first initial percentage that was taken out of the sales. That was the 10%. Why was
Correct.
it 10%? Even at that time, 10% would have been a pretty high price.
That was an amount that the Wood County Board of Supervisors set, and they actually voted on that that's what it needed to be. And in order for us to keep going at that point in time, we kind of, because they were running us, we had to do what they say, or our crafters either didn't bring their things down to the shop, or we weren't a part of the store. So that was a guideline that they set for us.
So Lori had a question. Do you know how much was in the account when they decided to tap it for a coordinator? It took 15 years to build up the amount in the account. How long would it have supported that position?
There were some in some of those articles that were in the newspaper. There was one that said something about $34,000 had been in there at one point in time. But again, taking money out to pay for that halftime coordinator started depleting that. And it seemed like it didn't last real long. There was a little bit of money in there but not a lot. And I'm not even sure exactly what happened, if the money that was in that account we were able to take with us when the shop became their own co-op. I'm not sure how that actually worked. I couldn't find the details, and nobody seems to really remember the specifics at that time.
So how many active crafters are currently engaged with the shop?
Right now, I think the last count that I did, it's in the mid 50s. So again, going back at that one point in time when there was like 450, that was a lot more crafters than what we have now. And we have lowered our requirement for age. You have to be at least 50 years old now. Not only do you have, and we had kind of gone through some of those requirements, but you have to have that $20 share that you buy one time, and then you pay a $20 fee every year just to keep you active. So those are some things in addition to the 35%. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but a lot of our crafters, when they make their items, they either are given the materials, they come across them, who knows, at a garage sale or whatever, so they can get some of their things fairly cheap or fairly inexpensive. So they don't have a lot of money tied up in their items. I do know some of our crafters have more money tied up in things, and so they have to charge more. For example, if I have something down at the store that I need to get $10 back on so that I can make my costs of what I have in it, we sell it at the store for $13.50. So that would be the 35% that goes on top. So that's kind of how that works right now. I hope that answered your question.
There is a follow-up that kind of ties into that one. Are you interested in adding crafters at this time?
We always are looking for crafters. So anybody who is 50 or older, who has a talent with some type of a craft. We have woodworkers. We have people who do crocheting, knitting, people that are good with a glue gun that just like gluing things together for some of their crafts. You name it, we have somebody down there that does it. And one thing that I did forget to mention is that one of the things that we've kind of been known for is if you come in looking for an item, and we always ask when people come in the store now, can we help you find something? Is there something specific that you're looking for? If we don't have it in the store and we have one of our crafters that can make it, we'll do special orders. So if you're looking for something particular and you can't find it anyplace else, I'm not promising that we'll be able to make it, but we will try our hardest to find somebody that will be able to help you out.
And I do have another question. So would you say that the shopping at the senior craft shop is on par with shopping at a craft show?
This is interesting because one of the things that I see at a lot of the craft shows now is you are not seeing just craft items. You are seeing a lot of the home party companies like Mary Kay or Avon or Tupperware or, some of these other types of things that are being sold. So a lot of times when you go to a craft show, at least that seems to be the way around here, unless it specifically is designated as a craft show, you're going to see a lot of these other things. The quality that you see in many of the items that we have down at the shop, I would say would be better than a lot of the things that you can buy in the regular store. Our crafters are very into detail and making sure that their items are well made. And like earlier, I had mentioned that the Senior Craft Shop has also been involved with the Seasonal Treasures Craft Show. And again, that is strictly a craft show. And so we bring some of the items from our shop out to the show just to kind of, again, make it more visible that we do have this business downtown. And again, we do share vendors. Some of the vendors that bring items in at the shop are also vendors that make things for us for the senior or for the Seasonal Treasures Craft Show.
Well, I think that is it for our questions, unless somebody drops another one down in our chat before we wrap up. But I do think that answered all of the questions quite well, and I don't
Super.
see anything else popping up right now. So
yeah, if you're interested in membership, just come down to the shop and we'll take care of you and get you set up.
Excellent. Well, you've already said your thank yous. I'm going to take my turn to say thank you so much to everybody that joined us this evening, and a special thank you to Vicki for joining us for an excellent and informative program.
And your kitty looks happy too.
Yeah, she's decided just now, because I'm talking again, that she wants to be a part of everything. So she's been joining me.
That's good. That's good.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a great evening. Thank you once more.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.